Hi, Chris. I know. It's
what's going on,
difficult.
man?
Nice to see you.
You too.
How you doing?
I
Good.
told Chris
How are you?
outside I haven't seen you since at midnight, and I literally didn't recognize you at first. It's probably been 3 years since I've seen you just in casual clothing.
Yeah, I know, and I prefer casual. I really don't love wearing suits, and everything I do, I have to put on a suit.
Why
Is
they
it your choice? Because like you develop so much of your stuff. Are you like, yeah, I should be wearing a suit for this?
Yeah, it's sort of like, I should probably dress like an adult. Like there was a certain point, because I have hundreds of just, dumb geeky T-shirts, and my manager was like, maybe you should start dressing like you want to work in television. I was like, all right.
Yeah, I got all these T-shirts
I'll
though.
put the Ravenclaw shirt away and put a fucking tie on.
Why'd they cancel at midnight? That seems like a silly movie by Comedy Central. Was that your decision? Because it's such an easy show, or not easy, but a simple show that was a massive following.
Right. Well, I mean, this will sound weird, but it was sort of mutual. But it was in the spring, they knew that they wanted to have a show at 11:30 that was not at midnight, because I think there's something like they get a better ad rate for politically themed shows. They can charge a higher ad rate for it. So, they really wanted to create that sort of magic hour, when it was Stewart and Colbert, now with Trevor and Jordan. So they really wanted to create that hour of like really strong political commentary, and everything's skewing so political now. And I was just like, I hate talking about politics. Like, we don't have the runway to talk about it on At Midnight because it's just so fast-paced jokes. So we can't really go in too much in depth on anything. And I'm just so tired of talking about it. And so they were like, well, we could move you back to midnight, or, I don't know. What are you thinking? And I was like, I don't know what else to do with this show. 600 episodes. I don't know what else to do with it.
And plus, you say Chris creates so much stuff. You're really the guy to look at, because you put together great ideas and you follow them through. I think that's the biggest thing in show business. It's not even just coming up with ideas; it's following through.
Well, but the business makes it really hard to follow through on stuff, because even if you pitch stuff, everything takes at least 18 months to happen. At least. You pitch something, even if they am in the room go, we're going to do this. There's like 3 or 4 months of lawyers doing shit. Then maybe the executives shuffle around, and then they come back and they give you notes, and then before you know it, like 2 years have passed. You're like, I don't even fucking remember what this was anymore.
Yeah.
So the business really does not make it easy to, and the fact that anything gets made and then anything gets made well is mind blowing to me.
Does it ever get frustrating? Because like I feel like I see projects that are obviously like, it's like a Chris Hardwick idea or something that you did, and they're like, well, it's this version of it, whether it's Talking Dead or like there's many different examples. I feel like
it doesn't bother me, because it's sort of like, oh yeah, like we did something that works, so of course you know, and I think it's great that there are after shows. And when At Midnight came out, I mean, we didn't like there's a million shows like At Midnight in England, there just really aren't any here,
right?
And so we did At Midnight. A couple of people tried to do panel shows, but they're really hard to do. Like the show is a lot of work to make it look really seamless. But you were always really great on the show, Jim.
Thank you, and I appreciate you having me on. Believe me, you're one of 2 people who would have me on television. I love Chris Hardwick.
That show was so tailor-made for you too. It's just like quick jokes, get in, get out. Like say whatever you want, and no censoring really. And
they never fucked with me about jokes there, and like it was a really fun show to do, and you don't get that many opportunities to kind of, like you said, fire quickly. And if it lands, it lands. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
I honestly, and when we did the show, it was kind of innovative here in the States. But then after 4 years, it just wasn't anymore. It was like, oh, and people have seen it. Social media has evolved and changed so much, even since the time we started. And we just literally didn't know what else to do with it.
Was there a relief to it being over, in the sense that now you don't have this daily responsibility to go and
as much as I love the show, I don't miss
Yeah.
the schedule. Like
Right.
it just, because I work on a bunch of stuff, and so it was crazy for a while.
You were doing 2 days a week at one point, like 2 shows a day on Monday, Wednesday, just to try to cut down and free you up so you have some kind of life.
Yeah, exactly. Initially, it was Monday through Wednesday. We do the Thursday show late Wednesday, and then we switched to Monday, Wednesday, and it just got really crazy. And then I just felt like I'm not going to be as good if I'm thinking about 10 other things, and the show requires that you be insanely present the entire time. So
you always you were a great host, but it's one of those things where if you find something that's newer that you're like a little more excited about, or that you have to focus on, it's hard to stay focused on the thing you've been doing that you already know works.
I know, but I love stand up so much, and I loved being able to go to the Improv and, like see Tiffany Haddish and go, oh my God, I've never seen her before. And then book her on the show and she kills.
Yeah.
and just sort of watching people like Ron Funches, just like watching people really, the rest of the world discover how
Build
funny
up a
these
little
people
bit.
are. Yeah, yeah.
What was your relationship like, too, with Joan Rivers? I don't know if I knew you had a friendship with her.
Oh, yeah.
I'm kind of jealous of that. She's one of the comedians one of my favorite people ever, the most underrated comic ever, and I never really got to know her.
Yeah. When I first started doing the Nerdist podcast, we had her on because we did it. I worked at G4, and that was in the E building, so she did her show there. So we got her on, and we just totally clicked. We just hit it off. And the reason Joan was so remarkable, even at, and again, she did not die of natural causes.
Right.
I think she'd still be alive.
She's doing gigs.
Still doing gigs. And what it really taught me was that you never get old as long as you remain inquisitive and curious. She never blew off anything that was new. She was so interested in learning about technology and podcasting and live streaming. And so she would call me every once in a while and go, Chris, it's Joan. Listen, I want to do a YouTube show. What's the best way to promote? She was still pitching ideas. We would have lunch, or I'd go to her house and we'd talk about stuff. And then, and I was really heartbroken when she died because she was. I mean, that work ethic and how many different eras of comedy she's seen and what a pioneer she was, and she was fearless.
And she doesn't get the credit. People know she was funny in kind of she's in the atmosphere way. But I remember seeing her at the Cutting Room probably 12 years ago or 10 years ago with a girl I was dating. And I watched her, and she repeated one joke in an hour. She had notes on the floor. She was older. People forget she was 80.
Right.
And and I've said this before, it was the most barbaric set I've ever seen a stand-up do. And I mean fucking 9/11, AIDS. I mean,
oh, yeah.
Hard. And it was, as a comic, I'm watching, I'm like, she's so pure at what she does. And the fact that she's not considered in the top 5 or 10 comedians is crazy to me.
I would put her up there, especially because, she came from a school of comedy that was, when she first started performing a lot, she was working in the Village with Simon and Garfunkel were doing open mics, and, everyone worshipped Lenny Bruce. And she was in an era where comedy was really about making social commentary. And so she just wasn't afraid to talk about stuff that, other people would be afraid to talk about.
And she was clean. The fact that you go on The Tonight Show in 1969 and talk about being a whore, or the fact that you're lousy in bed, you know what I mean? The fact that you can talk about this stuff and get away with it. Nobody. And didn't Liz Taylor sue her, I think, for bashing her so hard on The Tonight Show?
Yeah, she went after her really hard. I got to see Joan when I was a kid. My parents used to go to Vegas a lot. And I saw Steve Martin perform. I saw Joan open for Johnny Carson in the 70s. And my parents went up to her after the show, and she just couldn't have been lovelier. She's a really sweet lady.
So Johnny was doing stand-up in the 70s?
He was doing stand-up, yeah. He'd pop over to Vegas, and he would do a show, and it was sort of stand-up, but he would do bits, these sort of long, kind of Newhart-esque bits, where it was the drunken teacher with a hangover, and so there were a lot of weird sound effects, and it was him acting out. So it was it wasn't as much joke telling as it was like sketchy bits, but yeah, he used to pop over and do that.
Was he entertaining?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, and also at that time, he was the fucking most famous guy on television. 40, 50 million people a night watch that, which is mind-blowing.
And what is it, too, with technology and stuff? I was talking to somebody who was younger about Richard Pryor, and they're like, who?
Ugh.
And I'm like, I can't comprehend that somebody who doesn't know, but a lot of people don't know who Johnny Carson was.
Sure.
So what is it about people now that they don't seem to have people used to have longevity? I saw Clockwork Orange when I was a teenager, even though it came out when I was 3. But it seems like now, is it the technology or the fact that there's so many things available?
That's what it is. There's so much content, and also there's so much niche content. You can get any, it's recommendation engines are telling you stuff that you already are probably going to like. We don't really have to. We used to have to seek out entertainment, or at least in the entertainment business too, there were so few entertainment portals that everyone had to watch the same stuff. It's there were 3 channels.
Yeah.
There's only a handful of movies opening. And if you didn't want to watch that stuff, then you just didn't get entertainment. So I think that was a lot of it, too. Because I'm sure people I'm sure there's young people who are like, Sam Kinison who? Bill Hicks what?
There's a lot of people that don't know who they are. You'd be surprised how many people don't know Kinison. Again, I guess he died in, 91?
Yeah, it was 91.
Been dead for 30 years. And as a host, who is the guy you look at because you're a great host.
Oh, thanks, man.
You're comfortable, you're likable. I think Carson was my favorite, but then I watched Jack Parr clips. I'm like, Jack Parr was fucking awesome. He was a comfortable, funny dude.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys just really Dick Cavett too. I mean, Dick was masterful at he never wanted this. He never seemed to steal the spotlight. He was so good at just setting people up and then just letting them go, keeping the ball in the air, and people just opened up to him. So I thought he was pretty great too. But as far as comedy, yeah, Jack Parr, Carson, or Steve Allen, or or even like Match Game, like Match Game or old Hollywood Squares. Like everyone was really loose, and it was probably because they were all really drunk.
Oh, were they drinking back then?
Yeah.
On the set?
Yeah. I think Richard Dawson would get pretty sauced up.
How fucking great is that? I love knowing that Richard Dawson might have been an alcoholic. You know how happy that makes me.
I mean, if that's not true, I apologize, but I do.
That's a great rumor.
But I
you
feel
can go back and watch and kind of see that clearly this is.
Are you not shocked to hear that?
No. This isn't breaking news to me. I don't think that.
Or Paul Lynde was was fucking. I've gone down these rabbit holes. There's so many great YouTube rabbit holes where you see like. What was it? There was just seeing Richard Pryor go on Carson or see I don't know, Carlin or these guys, and just watching them kind of talk as people.
Pryor and Carlin together were on.
Yeah, they were together on. Yeah. And that was kind of an interesting conversation because it seemed like they were both trying to find the rhythm, and like watching these guys who were masterful when they were in control of the room be a little uncomfortable when they were like just having to talk as themselves as people.
And also the fact that they were restricted. Like people say, oh, you got to be. Richard Pryor was funnier uncensored. George Carlin was funnier uncensored. And to watch them have to try to navigate it while sitting on a thing instead of being on. You're right. Neither one of them was 100% comfortable sitting there in that chair.
Well, I think it's hard. Like if you're a pure stand-up, it can be really hard if you're not in control of the microphone. If you're on someone else's show, it's sort of like, oh, how do I do this? I'm so used to being the one who's navigating.
Yeah, and how do I cut this word? I got this word I want to say, but how do I say it without saying twat or whatever the joke is? And like you feel like you're selling it out by softening it, and it's not as funny.
Yeah, and as much as it seems like they had to edit themselves more back then, I almost kind of think in some senses television was a little more liberal back then than like in terms of what you can and can't say. I mean, there were words you couldn't say, but there was subject matter that people would dance around, like naughty subject matter.
Sure.
And
you also had the freedom to kind of do stuff. Like you could do a show, like you couldn't do Dick Cavett show now because people don't have the attention spans. We want quicker. We don't want conversation. We want flashcards in here. Go straight to what's the story? What's the promo?
It's like a 2-minute long show intro, then the show, and then a lot of talking.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember watching Dick Cavett because when I was preparing for these talk shows I was trying, which they didn't go anywhere, the business. But I love Dick Cavett, and he had John and Yoko Ono. John and Yoko Ono were backstage waiting, so he's doing his monologue and he's just kind of yapping, and he decides to raffle off his tie, and it was a fucking awful bit, and I loved him for it because he didn't rush. He was just like, I'm just raffling off my tie. And you know how he would never hurry.
No.
And I'm like, this dog shit bit with the two biggest stars in the world waiting to come on the show. Like, I loved that he didn't panic. He didn't go, oh, let's just get them on, let's go. And then rush it. It was just casual and calm.
Yeah, it was very,
relaxed.
very, very comfortable. It was almost, his show was almost kind of podcasty, especially like the Betty Davis episode is insane because she was just incredible and, told all these crazy, crazy stories, and he just knew how to kind of prod people to just get them to open up.
Well, he did have the one advantage, too, of now it's not special to hear a celebrity talk. Like back then when Marlon Brando sat down and you're like, oh my God, he's going to talk. It's Marlon going to talk. Now no one gives a fuck because celebrities talk everywhere. You catch them on TMZ. You can catch them on their, they're posting videos. So it's not special to hear the opinions.
Everyone's fucking famous now. Everyone's famous because of social media, so it doesn't really mean anything anymore.
Yeah, back then though, if you heard a celebrity saying something, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe he's talking.
They speak? They have thoughts on things?
I like Mike Douglas too. He was an awkward motherfucker. Like he would just let a story lay there, and he wouldn't try to save it.
I was on that show when I was a kid because my dad was a professional bowler, and I was a really good bowler when I was a kid, and so I you will appreciate this as a comedy nerd. I bowled against Jimmy Walker on the Mike Douglas show in like 1980.
That's who won.
I did, but he was a really good bowler. Yeah.
So you were on Mike. Who else was on? Was that Tiger? Wasn't Tiger Woods on
Tiger
there for
Woods,
golf?
I think, was on that too. Yeah.
Was it Mike Douglas? His father brought him. I forget who they were on with. Was it? Do you remember or no?
No, I have no idea.
Very famous clip of Earl whatever his name was. Earl Douglas is a different guy. Tiger Woods' father bringing him on when he was. Was it that who it was?
Or what's his dad's name?
Oh, someone bringing it up now? I think someone trying to bring it up. Tiger Woods' first TV appearance, Mike Douglas, Bob Hope, Jimmy Stewart.
Bob Hope, that's a couple of cool guys to be on with. So you bowled against. Why'd you stop bowling, by the way?
I don't know. It just didn't really. My dad was like, you don't need to be. I mean, if I wanted to be a bowler, he would have been cool with it. But it just, I wanted to be in entertainment. Like bowling was fun, but
once you get singled out, you probably are not
then
like,
you don't want to. I don't know if I want to be on the Pro Bowlers
I like doing
Tour.
this thing. Yeah,
the Pro Bowlers Tour is rough because there's no real money in it, and even like the top guys only earn a couple $100,000 a year, and it's like only a few of them do, and then the rest of them is just like a regular job, like 30, 40, 50 grand.
How do they make money? Are there certain endorsements they'll do for what is it? AMP? Is that the big bowling
AMF?
Ball?
Yeah,
AMF,
there's AMF in Brunswick, and there's a few companies, and so they might do endorsements, but really it's just about the grind. It's kind of funny because my dad, like being a stand-up, it was very similar to the life that my dad had on the Pro Bowlers Tour. Like when he was still alive, if I was performing in some city, I'd go, hey, I'm in Tucson. And he'd go, oh, I bowled in 1972 at the Bowlerama over there on Jackson Street. So I was almost kind of like weirdly following his life just as a stand-up, just not as a bowler.
But getting laid more. I mean, let's be honest. Comics get laid more than bowlers, I think.
Oh no, I'm a serial monogamist. I never.
Oh, you were
really,
in a relationship back then.
Yeah, I never really went through that phase. Like I'm gonna go on the road and hook up. I just never did that.
Even after you started, like once you started getting all these TV gigs, you got super famous, and everybody's like, yeah, Chris Hardwick, and he's this creator, and he's this famous guy, and I know many women that find you very attractive.
Well, that's very kind. I'm not a good dater, and I just like being in a relationship. Like I went from a 7-year relationship into a 3-year relationship, and then the next person was my wife. Like
How long have you been with her?
3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, we dated for a year, and we got engaged after a year, and then we got married after 2 years, and now we've been married.
So if you had just gone through a couple relationships where they went long and they ended, how did you know after a year that this one was different?
I just did. I don't know. I when I was young, I used to sort of think that that drama in a relationship was like passion, and I think it had to do with the fact that I'm a recovering alcoholic, and so we just like drama, And then when I met Lydia, she was very even-keeled and very sweet and wonderful, and I was like, oh. Wait, I think, like not being in a dramatic situation is probably
it's way better.
It's what it's supposed to be. And she's just the fucking best.
That's a great way to put it. That people confuse like drama with passion.
Well, because it gets you all riled up and you're like, yeah, it's real high highs, real low lows.
And you think you've got depth too?
Because you think you got depth because you got problems and feels, man. And
our
really,
relationship isn't like most relationships.
Well, that's why a lot of alcoholics and a lot of people in recovery get real fidgety if everything's just even, because it's just that spike, It's like the adrenaline spike and the serotonin spike and just all those up and down, up and down, up and down, which is what we do when we're drinking or taking drugs or whatever it is. And you realize after a while, like, oh my God, I'm doing the emotional version of that addiction thing.
So how did you feel? Because you kind of, I would imagine, went through something similar in your career where, like, for a while you were trying to figure out, how am I going to make this work? How am I going to make this work?
Sure.
And then things really started working.
They
right?
did, but it just took so many years. But it really, everything really changed. Like 10 years ago, where I was just like, I wasn't working, I had no job prospects, I was broke, no one was coming to see me do stand-up. And so I was like, what do I want to do? Like, what do I really care? And I'd never asked myself that question before. And so I just started looking at what I was good at, what I liked doing, and the subject matter of things that I liked. And I was like, as long as because when you start out, I think you go, oh, I just want a lot of something, a lot of whatever it is, money or fame or whatever it is. And then I was like, I think I just want to be happy. So I'm just going to focus on things that make me happy, that I enjoy. And if I can survive doing that, that's ultimately all you can ask for.
Did you ever struggle, or is it difficult now to like maintain? Because this whole thing, I think for you, this phase started with you being a fan of things. and celebrating that.
For sure.
Is it difficult to maintain that degree of fandom when, number one, you've got all this work to do because you've got all these gigs, and number two, people become such a fan of you being a fan that you almost, I'm like, am I still that guy? Am I
still authentic? Because I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I even have the proper perspective on that. I just think it does limit the amount of other things. Like I watch so much stuff for work,
Right.
that it limits the amount. When people go, "Oh, have you seen such and such?" I'm like, "No, not yet." And they're like, "Oh, I thought you were a nerd." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a nerd with like 6 jobs. I'm busy. I do my best."
And you get to a place too where you're watching something and you're like, wait, am I still a fan of this, or am I watching this because my job is to be a fan of this?
I actually am still good at watching stuff and just being a fan of stuff and not being too jaded or too weird about stuff. And I mean, it's on Talking Dead. I don't go after Walking Dead at all in a way where people are like, "We never criticize the show." It's like, yeah, but if you look at everything I do, I'm not like that with anything,
Right?
Because it's you could be negative about anything, or you could be positive about pretty much anything. And I just think there's enough negativity in the world.
Isn't it amazing when fans of a thing get mad at you for being a fan of the same thing and not complaining about it?
Well, yeah, they get really mad because we're sort of in this age of we're sort of in this age of like engineered narcissism where people we're so spoiled as consumers to get things exactly how we want, when we want, delivered the way that we want. And when things don't 100% line up with the way that we want them, we flip the fuck out.
Right.
And if someone doesn't agree with that, like, "Well, you're a fucking piece of shit." Right.
Right.
No, I just have a different opinion than you. "Yeah, well, your opinion's shit." Okay, well, I guess my opinion's shit then.
How do you handle the negative feedback? We all get it. We all get the hate, and that's kind of common. You're a public
Sure.
figure. People are going to hate your guts. They're going to love you. So how do you deal with it?
I try to ignore most of it, and then other people, I just engage with them in a nice way, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm sorry. This is your interpretation of this thing. I'm just a guy doing a thing, not trying to ruin your day." And most of the time, people will be like, "Oh, I was just because social media has become an extension of our emotional brain. Like, there's no more filter. It's just whenever you have an emotion, you immediately put it on social media, and it's a snapshot of however you were feeling in that moment. And in 5 minutes, you may not even feel that way anymore because people go, "Oh, yeah, I was just, I don't know, I was just upset."
That's a great point. Why have we not recognized that? Like, I think we know it as individuals. It's a snapshot of how you're feeling.
Yeah.
But why do we still take shit on social media and go, "That's the gospel. That's how it is"?
Because it's in text, it's
wrong.
written down, and it's recorded. I mean, it's sort of like social media is kind of like when you're driving in your car and you're just shouting at other people in traffic, but it's shared. Like if someone could hear you shouting in traffic, like, "What a monster!" We're like, "Oh, I don't mean any of that. I just."
But we haven't. There's so many people who haven't gotten past the point of I saw that in print. So
Right.
it must be real, and you're like, it's just no. Everybody just has the ability to.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
type.
people say things, and you act like everyone who says something is a reasonable, happy person that walks up to you at a party and says,
Right.
"Hey, your show's dumb, and fuck you, and your shirt's stupid." Be like, "Hey, why would you?" It's just. There's kind of a weaponized anonymity behind it. There's no accountability anymore. People don't have to answer for anything that they say. So it's just sort of a venting thing, and they don't, and most people, there's a lot of people who, if you call them out, will double down on their position.
Sure.
And be like, "Oh, I guess you can't take criticism." Like, no, I can take criticism, but you called me a fucking asshole.
Right, that's
just insulting.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're just a fucking baby. Okay, well, now you're still insulting me.
See, the people do mistake. Not like they want to be able to talk to you like a twat, and then if you respond to that, they're like, "You can't take criticism." It's like, no, if you actually wrote me a reasonable email, my email's on my Twitter.
Yeah.
And said, "Look, man, I don't like the show because I think you guys are doing this and this wrong."
You would engage with them and go, "Oh, well, I understand that. Here's why we do this. I could take a look at that."
I've never fired back "fuck you" at somebody that has just been critical. I actually listen to a lot of that, and sometimes they're right. People will a lot of times tell you shit you don't want to hear that makes sense. They're not always wrong.
And I agree with you too. Like if people have a criticism for, Talking Dead or something or whatever, and they go, "Hey, it really sucks that you do this." I really do listen. I go, "Okay, well, this is a fan-centric show. You are a fan. You're upset. Maybe I should take a look at this. How can I do better?" And most of the time they go, "Hey, I really appreciate that." They could start with rage and they go, "I really appreciate that you listen." I go, "Yeah, we can just have conversations."
Yeah.
But there was something really interesting that I discovered that never occurred to me. Because when people attack you, you usually think like, "What an obnoxious asshole. They must think they're fucking awesome." And the sad truth is a lot of people who go really hard at you are unhappy. And when you engage with them, or if your feelings are hurt, I've had people go, "What the fuck do you care what my opinion is? I'm nobody." And they actually respect you less because they think so little of themselves, and that you responding to them means that you must think a lot. You must not have a high self-esteem because they don't have high self-esteem.
But it's also a way out for them when they're losing an argument. Like a lot of times, if someone's like a radio show will smash a bigger radio show, and then the bigger radio show responds and goes "fuck you," and then they go, "What do you care what we say for? We're just a small radio show." That's almost an excuse for like, "Hey, we just want to talk shit and not be responded to."
Yeah.
That's it. Like, but I think it goes a little bit further because I've had some interactions on Reddit where I think, oh, not only do you not want me to really say anything about your dissection of me, you want me to thank you for, like, it's not even they go, oh, I guess we don't have free speech. You go, yeah, you're not going to jail for your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion, but other people are entitled to their opinion about your opinion. That's how discourse works.
I mean, this is off topic, but as a horror movie geek and fanatic,
Yes.
I was so happy in general and happy for you when I read about the deal that you have with Blumhouse.
Oh, the Blumhouse deal. Yeah,
because
yeah.
I mean, there's nobody making films like Blumhouse. Like I didn't even really, because I don't necessarily pay attention to production houses or anything. I just watch movies. But it was like, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago or something, I started like just taking an inventory of all the movies that were coming out that I liked.
Insane.
All of them.
Yeah.
And then I go and find Blumhouse and like just give me the list of everything they're doing. And it's just like movie after movie after movie. It's amazing the stuff they're coming out with, especially for the genre.
It's a really good group too. Like they really genuinely care about the genre.
You can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not just, I mean, of course, they're in a business, so of course they want to make money, but it doesn't feel like just a cash grab.
Right, they're not doing that like sort of 80s thing where they're just throwing some schlock slasher like, let's put out another one, put out another one, put out another one.
Put on another sleepaway camp.
Yeah, exactly.
What was it that made like the old Hammer film? Those were remember the old Hammer Studios in London that made horror films? What made their movies so good compared to a lot of other?
I don't know. I mean, I just think it's
Or did you not like them?
No, I did. But with that, or even like Roger Corman, like when a film, even if it's not traditionally like classically great in the in the Academy Award sense, if something has a really strong point of view, I mean that's all. Like Ed Wood was that way too. It's like it's all point of view driven.
Yeah, or you can feel the creator behind it. I can feel the person who wrote or directed it.
Yeah.
Like somebody's hands are on this thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like their style is a character.
Yeah.
And you buy into that character, and it's great.
Like somebody wanted to make this movie not just for the business reasons, but they actually wanted this movie to exist.
Right. But just going back a minute, I'm thinking you guys, and you especially, Jim, because your stand-up voice is so, you go so hard after stuff, I would tend to bet that people think that they have to go hard after you because that's how you communicate.
You would guess right. I don't know what their motives
Yeah.
are, but boy, when they go,
Or they think they think they're part of the humor if they're like, "Hey, what's up, you fucking asshole?" And you're like, well, "Hey, come on, man, that's a stage thing."
if they just said that, if they just said, "Come on, you fucking asshole," I'd be like, look at how mild and cute that is. Yeah, some of them are very brutal. Some of them are really funny too. You can't deny that some of them are fucking really, really funny.
I don't think. Yeah, I think I think people don't quite understand that part of what makes a comedian is that we are we sort of absorb the world. We're very sensitive to the world, but that means we're also very sensitive people, and a lot of us are very insecure, and a lot of us have issues, and so when people just start poking, of course, but watching the way like more famous people interact online has taught me, like, oh yeah, it doesn't always look great when you get petty, it's like you really do. You really
there's a way to address it.
There's
when
a
you're
way to
certain.
address it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you certainly don't want to address it the way Kevin Spacey did. That was not a good way to come back with on allegations.
What, just come out?
No. You had to put out that statement,
Yeah.
and that's the last thing he said on Twitter. You're like, oh no.
Yeah. People were not too keen on that. Or like, you're just using that as an excuse, and now you're making this whole community look bad because that's your excuse.
Have you ever gotten to a place where, like, because I'm sure people talk to you about, like, well, now you have this voice, now you have this influence, you should be talking about politics.
Sure.
You should be talking about serious issues.
People want you. People have an idea of what they think you shouldn't be talking about. But I sort of feel like you really need to talk about what you're passionate about. And if I were really passionate about politics, I would talk about it. But the problem is, it's basically mostly an echo chamber.
Right.
People who already agree with you are going to go yes, and people who don't agree with you are going to go fuck you, and you're not going to change anyone's mind. And I also I don't like things that divide people. And the second I start, the second I get political, it just divides people.
Especially the Jews. They always get the. Oh, sorry.
Hey, well, what the?
Where did that?
It just divides people, and that makes me sad. Like, it doesn't, because everyone goes into defensive mode, and it's just all shouting. My friend, do you know Baratunde Thurston?
No.
It's great. He used to work at the Onions. Brilliant guy.
Comedian?
Yeah, he's a comedy guy. Yeah,
Okay.
not. I don't think he actually does stand up, but he's a comedy guy, but he's just a brilliant thinker. And he was saying that, he was saying social media has become so performative that people feel like they need to like perform their opinions in a way that's so overly dramatic rather
Right.
than just having conversations. And so I don't like things that divide people. I want comedy to be, for me, I want it to be fun. I want it to bring people together no matter what, And so, when people say, you should, I'm like, yeah, but I wouldn't be very good at it. Like, it wouldn't be good.
Right. It's not natural for you
It's
to do
not
that.
natural for me. It would feel inauthentic.
Right.
And you married too. You married into the Hearst family, which is a great job.
Yes, I did.
I'm sure you fell in love, and I'm sure that's why. But is there any odd feelings marrying into such a legendary I mean, I know it's not like a dumb question, but I've never been involved with a.
No. It's like you honestly wouldn't really know if you didn't know. I mean, they're super nice, normal, sweet people. I haven't encountered anything that's like, oh, they're just all really cool.
Where was your wedding?
We did it in Pasadena at this hotel called the Langham Huntington. It was a really nice
I would hope
hotel.
so.
It was a really nice
Sounds
hotel.
nice.
Yeah, it was great. It was really great.
Where'd your honeymoon?
We went to Japan.
I've never been there. I hear it's
Fucking
expensive
great.
but nice.
It's great. It's beautiful. Japan's beautiful.
What'd you do? 2 weeks?
We did 2 weeks. We were in Tokyo for a couple days, and then you can take the bullet train and be pretty much anywhere in like an hour and a half. And we just went all around the southern part of the island, and it was just it's such an amazing place.
Is it expensive? I heard I want to go, but I hear it's rather pricey.
It is, but it's worth it. Like
You live in New York too.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's true.
But
I
I think it is more. I think it is pricier than
Manhattan.
I believe it is. Yeah.
Wow.
But it's great. It's worth it. If you're gonna invest in anything, having an experience, but you really have to go out and see, just see the villages.